Hi buddies, hope you're doing fine. In this series, we will discuss about the important one words from the Romantic age. If you are ready, let's get started. The specimen of the English dramatic poets was written by Lamb. Shelley writes, then Alpheus Ball on his glacier cold in river in Arcadia. Ode to Evening is an 18th century poem by William Collins. Thomas D. Quincy published his essay on knocking at the gate in Macbeth in the year 1823. Scott's novel Anne Grierstein and Neil Worth are based on French history, who said Lamb was the most delightful, the most provoking, and sensible of men. He always made the best pun and the best remark in the course of evening. D. Quincy. Sir Walter Scott has been best remembered for his book Ivanhoe, which poem of Keats highly impressed Shelley. Hyperion, who wrote Magnificence, Skeleton, who was of the view that without contraries there is no progression. Blake, who wrote the following line, and their sun does never shine, and their fields are bleak and bare. Blake, who believes that the tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of instinct. Blake, Virginie Burst Piousque, a collection of essays, was written by Oral Stevenson. Wordsworth was born in 1770. Walter Scott was born in 1770. The Time of Life is a dream allegory by Shelley. The Heart of Midlothian is a novel by Walter Scott, who regarded Waverley as one of best things that has been written in the world. Goethe, who talked of the divinity of Shakespeare. Coleridge, the phrase wonderful philosophical impartiality was used by Coleridge. Motiveless malignity is a phrase from Coleridge. Cloud Slave is a weak novel by Godwin, who is of the view that all things that love the sun are out of doors. Wordsworth. How many poems of Coleridge are included in the lyrical ballads? 4. The fourth canto of Childe Harold's Pilgrimage appeared in the year 1818. Which work of Shelley was written in irregular unrhymed meter? Kuhn Map. Keats' Endymion is based on Drayton's The Man in the Moon and Fletcher's The Faithful Shepherdess, who said, if poetry comes not as naturally as the leaves to a tree, it had better not come at all. Keats. Rejected Addresses was written by James Smith and Horace Smith. Hazlitt's The Spirit of the Age came out in the year 1825, who wrote, for thy sake, tobacco, I would do anything but die. Lamb, who called Wordsworth a moral eunuch. Shelley, who was of the view that hell is a city much like London. Shelley, who said, pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor. Blake's The Book of Urizen tells us about the origin of evil, who said, man is born free, but alas, he is everywhere in chains. Rousseau, who is of the view that beauty is truth and truth beauty. Keats, who wrote, it is strange, but true for truth is always strange, stranger than fiction. Byron. When was the Reform Bill passed? 1832. Who said, what the imagination says is as beauty must be truth? Keats. Who postulated the noble savage? Rousseau. Reflection on the revolution in France and on the proceedings in certain societies in London related to that event, published in 1790, was the work of Burke. The fall of the prison of Bastille that marks the beginning of the French Revolution occurred on July 14, 1789. Who wrote the Ode to France under the influence of the French Revolution? Coleridge. In which of his poems Shelley denounces all the forces of tyranny and oppression represented by kings and priests, the revolt of Islam? Though Keats was the least affected by the French Revolution directly, which of his works has been said to be bearing revolutionary implications? Hyperion. Wordsworth has described various stages of his associations with nature. In which stage did he hear the still sad music of humanity, the final stage? In which of his poems Wordsworth tells the scholar to do away with books and make nature his teacher? Table turn. Who uses the pansies as a symbol of sad thoughts and violets as of modesty and innocence in one of his poems? Shelley. And it is my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. Who holds his faith? Wordsworth. What has been addressed as a cloud of fire and unembodied joy, a golden glowworm, and a poet hidden in the gift of thought? Skylove, who has been said to combine pantheism and Platonism in his nature poetry? Shelley. Shelley writes in Adonis a portion of the loveliness which once he made more lovely. Who does he refer to in these lines? Keats. Which of the nature poets has been said to be endowed with organic sensibility? Keats. Who wrote the Isles of Greece, a fine appreciation of the great deeds done by the Greeks in the past? Byron. Whom does the Greek god Pan fight with in Shelley's hymn of Pan? Apollo. Hallis, a frequent word in romantic poetry, refers to the oldest poet of Greece. Which poems of Keats bear the mark of Hellenism? Endymion and Hyperion. The most important ballad collection of the 18th century was Relics of Ancient English Poetry. Who made this admirable collection? Bishop Percy. The Ossianic poems, which explore the world of Celtic antiquity, was written by Macpherson. Porphyro and Madeline are the lovers in The Eve of Saint Agnes, who was called of Keats as the egotistical sublime. Wordsworth, who has been referred to as the high priest of romanticism. Coleridge. Abundantly and enchantingly sensuous, this phrase was attributed to Keats by Arnold. Prior to Keats, who else was an endowment of what has been called the negative capability? Shakespeare. Regarding whom does Symonds write? In none of his greatest contemporaries was the lyrical faculty so paramount. Shelley. Frankenstein, a prose science fiction, was written by Mary Shelley. Who is Frankenstein in Mary Shelley's novel, The Scientist? In which of his poems Wordsworth records his impressions of a manufacturing district of northern England? The Excursion. The historic drama The Fall of Robespierre, published in 1794, was written by Coleridge and Southey. A pre-revolution poem by Southey is Joan of Arc, who introduces as a narrator a country person exploring the simple annals of his parish living in his poem The Paris Register. Crabbe. Lady Catherine is the famous character of Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Who is the author of The Absentee Woman and Castle Backrane? Edgeworth. The first two cantos of Childe Harold, which made Byron instantaneously famous, were published in the year 1812. Sardanapalus Palace and the two Fosconi are the worst tragedies of Byron, which is written in 1821 and published posthumously in 1840, bears Shelley's most confidential proclamation of the social function of poetry and the prophetic role of the poet, a defense of poetry. Who wrote an essay on the principles of human action from which Keats drew considerably? Hazlitt. Hazlitt presented a sharp and witty criticism of his literary and political contemporaries in 1825 in his Essays on the Principles of Human Action. Who established his literary reputation as Elia, the author of a series of essays mostly contributed to the London magazine? Charles Lamb. Who wrote a poem by the name The Shepherd's Calendar that was published in 1827? John Clare. Liberty, the soul of life, shall reign. I shall throb in every pulse, shall flow through every vein. Who wrote the above lines about the French Revolution? S.T. Coleridge. Men of England, wherefore plough for the lords who lay low. These revolutionary thoughts hail from Shelley. John Murray and William Gifford were the publishers and editors of the Quarterly Review, about which magazine Scott had said, "No gentle family can threaten to be without it," and Carlyle had remarked that it was a kind of Delphic oracle and voice of the inspire for the great majority of what is called the intelligent public. The Edinburgh Review, who is in critical work, wrote about the time of Shakespeare's endeavour to spread the knowledge of old English playwrights. Lamb, who wrote the essays Note on the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth and Murder, which is considered as one of the fine arts. Thomas D. Quincy, whose fame as an essayist rests on imaginary conversation. Lander, the credit of pioneering the historical novel is often attributed to Scott. The Scottish Chief by Jane Porter, Races by Sophia Lee, is an attempt at historical fiction made prior to Scott's popularization of the genre. In which of his novels Scott represents that Shakespeare died in 1590 without writing his tragedies, Woodstock, in which one of Austen's novels Fanny visits her parents' home at apartments after an absence of more than 10 years, Mansfield Park. Who does Darcy propose Elizabeth in Pride and Prejudice, Hunsford Parsonage, in which novel of Austen John Dashwood the henpecked husband appears, Sense and Sensibility, which work of Jane Austen is a satire directed against Gothic romance and stormy passions, Northanger Abbey. Who wrote blank verse tragedies such as Coin, Manfred, Marino, Faliero, and the Demo Transfer. Byron, who wrote the tragedy John Woodville that was originally given the title Droid Scare. De Quincey, the churchyard schools of poets means the poets who wrote poetry chiefly of melancholic strain, who has been called a plowman poet. Burns, Tom Jones by Henry Fielding was dedicated to G. Littleton. Whom did T.L. Peacock satirize in his Nightmare Abbey? Shelley and Coleridge. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. If you're having any suggestion, let me know in the comment section. We'll see you in next video. Tada, bye bye.